Hey Zoe, so this is 4.7. We're starting on page 229. And when you look at this particular activity, you're going to see that this is a very incomplete multiplication chart. And so basically what we're looking at is that if you look at this circled 8 and if you look at this circle 0, if you were to follow this 8 down to that very first green box and then take that green box and come all the way over to that first row, if you use this correctly, it would be like saying 8 times 0. And 8 times 0 is a 0. So when we go ahead and we fill out all of our green squares, just like they ask us to, you're going to see we get 7 times 1, which is 7, 6 times 2, which is 12, 5 times 3, 15, 4 times 4, 12, 3 times 5, 15, 2 times 6 is 12, 1 times 7 is 7, and then 0 times 8, which is 0. And so the thing that I notice about this is that when I write down actually my products, I can see that I've got 0, 7, 12, 15, and then I get this 16, which is my 4 times 4, and then I get this 15, 12, 7, and 0 again. So I get those same factors or those same products. It's just that they're in reverse order. So when you look at the yellow, you're going to notice the same pattern. You've got your 6 times 0, 0. 5 and 1 is 5, 4 and 2 is 8, 3 and 9 is 3 and 3 is 9. Then you've got 2 and 4 is 8, and 1 and 5 is 5, and 0 and 6 is 0. So again, you're noticing the same thing. All of your factors, I'm right over here, are all of your products are going to be very similar. It's just in reverse order. You've got your 6 and 0, which should be 0. 5 and 1 is 5, 4 and 2 is 8, 3 and 3 is 9, 2 and 4, 8, 1 and 5 is 5, 0 and 6 is 0. So you can see you've still got, there's your, in the middle, there's your repeated 3 and 3, but all of your other products are the same, they're just in reverse order. And the reason for this is that this is the commutative property of multiplication. When you look at this chart, when you see your 5 times 1, if you keep going diagonally down that line, eventually you run into 1 times 5, which of course is going to be your same product. The other thing that they wanted you to take note of is that when you look at this ones column right here, and when you really highlight the fives column as well, you can take any of the products from your ones and your fives as long as they're in the same column. And when you add them together, you're going to end up getting the product for 6. So example, 3 and 15 equal 18. 8 and 40 equals 48. And the reason for that is because that's the distribution property. It's almost like taking your 6 and splitting it into a 5 and a 1. So if you go ahead and if you find your factor or your product of 1 times 8, and then you find your product of 5 times 8, and you add them together, you get your product of 6 times 8, 48. On the next page, they were asking you to just look at some other patterns. So if you look at these other patterns, you're going to see that if you look across on all of the orange rows that I've highlighted, you're going to notice that they're all even numbers. And that's because the actual factors are even numbers. When you look at the light blue, you're going to notice that you're going to alternate between an even product, odd product, even product, odd product. So basically, in other words, what we're noticing is that we're noticing kind of like a pattern here. If you have an odd and an odd factor, you're going to get an odd product. You have an even and an even factor, you get an even product. Same thing when you have an odd and an even, you get an even. So the last thing I want you to show you is that when you go ahead and when you look at each one of the rows, you're going to notice that it's skip counting. So if you look at your 2s, you're going to notice that you're skip counting by 2s all the way across the row. If you go ahead and look at your 8s, you're going to notice you're skip counting all the way across the row. So basically, down here, it says each row skip counts. For example, 2 is going to skip count by 2, and 6 is going to skip count by 6. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to work on I would like you to work on the rest of the problems on page 230. And then when you get to the next page, you can do like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are input-output boxes. So when you look